And if it wasn't for that day, my husband and I both look back on that day and we're so teary-eyed and thankful to God that we came in to see Renee and that my poor baby couldn't breastfeed. Thankfully that happened, because if that hadn't happened, he would probably be a single parent right now. And I hate to say that, but I think that that day was so pivotal. So pivotal.
We have Amanda Haberbrunken with us today, and she's an interesting birth story that we're going to share. She actually did not ultimately birth with us, so it's sort of a story about what it looks like when you're doing prenatal care with the midwife, when things sometimes become high risk, and we identify that, and we refer out, which is an appropriate thing to do, right? So that's one thing when you're with the midwife. We're not going to keep you here. This is one thing your family needs to know. This is the big concern, right? How will you know if there's an emergency? What will happen if there's an emergency? It's so dangerous to have a baby out of hospital, right? All those stories we talk about all the time. But when you're with a midwife, hopefully they're well trained and they can identify. I know we certainly can. We can identify when things are not normal. I may not know what it is because it's not my specialty to know some of these conditions that happen. But we can identify when it's not normal, which is the case we had here.
Not normal is exactly right.
Not normal.
Yes.
And so talk a little bit about
Sure.
what that was.
Sure. So I had started with Renee probably, I think, the end of my first trimester, beginning of my second trimester, because we had moved to the area, and my aunt is a midwife, and so
Cindy!
Hi, Aunt Cindy.
Some of you might know her.
Yeah.
She was a student here for a while. She was our midwife that was visiting from Georgia, who we adore, and she's now practicing on her own in Georgia, and we wish she lived closer because she's fantastic.
We all wish she lived closer.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, she had found Renee for me, so I came in for a visit and absolutely loved everything about being here. I loved her care. I loved sitting with her for an hour and the time she took to get to know me, my family, my needs. And then the day that I remembered that everything changed was when I came in to take my glucose test, and I was just not feeling that great, and Renee took my heart rate, and it was actually pretty high. So from that point, we started trying to identify what was causing the high heart rate, and it can happen, just normally for most, pregnant women. It can go a little high.
And it could also happen when you drink that 50 grams of glucola.
Yes.
Sometimes you have a reaction to it, right? You have the sugar rush, and sometimes your pulse might be elevated.
Yes.
But
it just something was a little weird, yeah. And then from that point, we tested my iron levels, and after increasing my iron dosage and the different types of iron, we realized that it wasn't that. And before Renee did a panel to figure out, maybe if there's a specific type of iron or, something deeper within the anemia spectrum that she could find, she said, I really just think you need to see a cardiologist. And from that point, my whole life changed, and I'm not saying that lightly. It was really true. My entire life changed. Yeah. We went to go see Dr. Yash, who referred me to a cardiologist because he too thought that my heart rate was way too high, even for pregnancy.
Because it was staying high.
It was staying
Your
high.
Your resting heart rate. I remember we talked over the weekend, and
the
it was
lowest
like,
it would get was like 120, and it would shoot all the way
way
up to like
too high.
140, 160. And
resting. So that's obviously that is not normal. Now I don't know what to do in that because I'm not a cardiologist, but I know.
And if there's
not
something
normal.
underlying, cardiac wise that I just never knew about. So at first we were told we had, or that I had a condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is like pretty serious. So we got a little concerned about what that was going to mean for delivery. So obviously I risked out of here knowing that we might need a full cardiac team at my birth.
Terrifying.
Yes, but I still came in to see Renee and still, talked with her through all of those things, and my aunt, of course, who was living out here at the time. So as I'm going through all of these visits, something just didn't sit right with me, and so it was a Wednesday in my third trimester. I was still due maybe 2.5, 3 weeks out, but that Wednesday, we met with a team from UCLA who confirmed that we did not have I did not have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. and that my heart was healthy and that was reacting abnormally to being pregnant, and that they wanted to, look into things a little bit further. And they offered to take me on because they worked with a high-risk doctor at UCLA who had done, all sorts of things with women with cardiac issues.
Is it Tavish?
Yes.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
It's his team offered to take me on. So this was Wednesday, and as my husband and I were, contemplating yet again another switch in birth care, Friday I went into labor. So we didn't have time to switch anything over. We went and had our baby.
At Holy Cross with Yash.
With Yash, yes. And thanks to Yash, after 37 hours of labor and about 5 hours of pushing, I delivered naturally. I did not have a C-section.
Yeah.
And that was just phenomenal. So thankful for him, and so thankful that that team helped walk me through that. What happened after that was a progressive spiral downwards, which is where Renee comes back in, and I would even say that she saved my life. Literally. So the next, the day after I gave birth, I noticed that my legs started swelling tremendously, which I kept being told by the postpartum nurses that
it's
that's
normal.
Yeah.
When you have a hospital delivery and you have all those IV fluids, it's not uncommon for your ankles to be the same size as your thigh, and it's normal.
And I kept feeling really tired, obviously. I just had a baby. It was my first baby. I delivered at 39, so I kept hearing, oh, you're an older mom, it's going to be harder on your body, blah, blah, blah. And then I kept saying, I just don't feel right. Like, something just doesn't feel right. I can't sleep. And they're telling me, you're tired. They started telling my husband that they thought I had postpartum psychosis. I kept asking for sleep, and I wasn't allowed to sleep. And then finally Yash came in and said, don't disturb her, let her sleep. But I couldn't sleep because every time I laid back, I couldn't breathe well. And that was the first time I started noticing something's just really, really off. But again...
How quickly after delivery? I mean, is this 24, 36 hours?
Probably about 24 hours after. I could just tell I wasn't feeling that great. But they're still, checking my heart rate and things and making sure my heart's okay. Come to find out later, I didn't find this out till months later, but they were giving me the wrong heart medication.
Yeah.
So, yes. So, who knows what that has to do with it. But anyway, so I get released, finally we go home, and I was at the point where I was in so much pain that I couldn't walk. And by pain, my body felt so heavy, I don't even know how to describe, and that's probably a lot of the problem is I didn't know how to describe what was wrong with me. So, my aunt came over and, kind of felt, my uterus.
Oh, right.
And
making sure you didn't have a uterine infection.
Yes. So she came over and she felt like what she thought might have been a clot. So I ended up back in ER that night. Sure enough, I had a clot in my uterus, but it wasn't big enough to worry about. So they said it should pass on its own. And I was diagnosed that night with a UTI. Can you believe it? And
that's a famous ER diagnosis, by the way. Everybody has a UTI.
My heart at that point started doing PVCs, which is basically, it would beat really strong and then it would stop and then it would kind of do an irregular heartbeat, and then it kept doing that over and over again. And I'm watching it do that on the monitor, and nobody is addressing that. And after I've just told them I was on beta blockers and heart rate issues,
you're not in labor and delivery, you're in ER.
No, ER, yeah. And I'm telling them I'm seeing double. I can't, when I look at my husband, he's got two eyeballs, under each other. When I look at the signs on the freeway, there's two, everything is double. Everything is double. And they're just telling me, oh, you're exhausted. It's your first baby. I couldn't pee by myself because it hurt so bad. Because my body was so swollen.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, it's,
Postpartum.
Yes.
Normal postpartum.
Yes. And then I had an experience with a really weird doctor who kept wanting to recheck. It's another story I won't get into. But, so anyway, we finally left with antibiotics.
For a UTI.
For a UTI. That was a Thursday. So I got released on
day
Wednesday.
4.
Yeah.
Day 4, baby's day 4 of life or something, right?
Yeah, something like that. And then I was having a really hard time breastfeeding. And a really hard time. And I couldn't get, she seemed to be latching okay, but it just seemed like she kept dropping a lot of weight, and I was, kind of concerned. And my aunt recommended, hey, why don't you come in and see Renee and do a lactation consultancy with her. So that following Monday, I came in, and by this time, my whole, I don't even know how to describe it. I just felt like I was a balloon and still having a lot of trouble breathing. I got to the point where I couldn't talk without losing my breath, and it was like effort to get like air to come out. And I grew up with asthma, so I kept thinking, maybe my hard labor has put me into an asthma attack and I need to go get an inhaler or something.
And there were all kinds of theories like, well, you're so tired and maybe you're getting a cold and all this is normal and you're exhausted and you've been in so much pain this whole time.
Right.
So it was just sort of
and your heart's tired because you've had a high heart rate for months. So so I came in here and Renee, talked with us through the lactation
consultation.
The consultation, helping me with breastfeeding Sophie, and she was doing fine, but it just I wasn't okay. And so she asked to listen to my whole story. She heard the whole birth story again and, listened in detail. And she just said, I don't think you're well. I don't think this is a cold. This doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem like a normal reaction to labor. And I think you need to call your cardiologist.
I remember looking at you and, again, not being a cardiologist, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's in congestive heart failure. I think this is what congestive heart failure looks like. You need to call your cardiologist, like right now, like immediately.
Yeah.
This is not call tomorrow. This is like call right now. This is not okay. You were reporting this like, I think you said something like, I feel like I'm drowning. I think that was the indicator. And that's sort of a classic congestive heart failure symptom.
But being, just a person and not a cardiologist, never having a baby before, never having gone through this, I didn't know what words to use to describe what was happening to me. But she had the intuition to look at me and say something's not right because she knew me. And she knew, she knew our story, she knew our history, she knew what was normal, for a woman after delivery, even who's 39, So after that, we did go call the cardiologist, and who told me if I had any other symptom to go straight to ER. But having been to ER and having had so many bad experiences with ER, that was the last place I wanted to go. I felt like no one was hearing me, and I felt like nobody was listening. And through God's kindness, I had a labor and delivery nurse friend who works for Dr. Tavish, that same guy. She texted me and said, I'm home today. Can I do anything to help you? And I said, yeah, can you take me to ER? And so we ended up actually going to urgent care because I thought they were going to send me home with antibiotics or, something simple again. So she took me to urgent care. We got in there and they said, we can't treat you. You need to go to the ER right now. We want to ambulance you to Henry Mayo. And so I actually decided, no, I want to go to Holy Cross, and got in the car, left my, 7-day-old baby, week-old baby home with hubby and another friend, and went with I left the labor and delivery nurse with my baby. I took my hubby to ER with me, and she gave me very specific words to use when we went to ER, and told me to say, I am having chest pain. So little did I know that heavy chest is chest pain. I wouldn't have known that. And that I couldn't breathe, shortness of breath, I'm having chest pain. And I got into ER within maybe 5 minutes, and I had my own room. I had the head of ER as my doctor. It all was terminology, and all, took, me using the words to describe what was happening to me the right way. Sure enough, within a couple hours, they had several theories of what was wrong with me. One was postpartum cardiomyopathy, or peripartum cardiomyopathy, postpartum preeclampsia,
and then still don't think that's and I still argue that.
But they ended up not ever giving me a diagnosis except for having congestive heart failure. So that was interesting too, because they were saying I must have had long-term blood pressure issues or heart issues that I never knew about, which has not turned out to be the case. Right. So, and then after that, I had several doctors tell me that we couldn't have children again, or it would kill me. Since then, Renee sent me some great research, and I've been able to see that high-risk doctor again, who thinks that it's fine for us to have children. We'll just have to monitor what my heart does and how it responds to pregnancy. And now on this end, I know who to call, and even though I'm too high risk to birth at the birth center, Renee is the first person I'm going to for advice, for intuition, for care, because I trust her, because I know she knows me, and I know she knows what's happened.
You know, the issue is that as midwives, and I'd like to believe that all of my sister midwives would have done the same thing, is that midwives listen to you as a person. Yeah. We don't just, you're just not another pregnant woman.
Right.
And we put off like, oh, it's just normal, it's normal, it's normal. But we have the ability, we have the luxury, because our patient load is so small, unlike some of our wonderful doctors. I mean, we have some really, really terrific doctors around, but unfortunately, given the healthcare situation with insurance, their patient load is so dense that they don't have the luxury to be able to spend 60 minutes with somebody and talk about the family and how are you doing and really get to know a person. And that's the beauty of midwifery care, is that we really do know who you are. So whether we know what the condition is, we know when you walk in, wait a minute, this isn't right, Amanda. This is not not how you normally present. I don't know what this is, but I know this isn't okay.
Yeah.
And granted, we're not doctors and we're not surgeons and we don't have that level of expertise, but we do know what's normal and we do listen.
Right. And, you know, honestly, if it wasn't for that consultation with you that day, I would have died.
Yeah.
I would have died because I would not
Terrible.
go back to ER again,
so crazy.
knowing that they were going to tell me.
Because they didn't listen.
Right. And they do tests, but, you know, sometimes it's more than a test. Sometimes you need to know the person to know that your test is eventually going to go that way, and maybe it's not there quite yet, but they're on the direction to that, you know. And if it wasn't for that day, my husband and I both look back on that day and we're so teary-eyed and thankful to God that we came in to see Renee and that my poor baby couldn't breastfeed. You know, thankfully that happened, because if that hadn't happened, he would probably be a single parent right now. And I hate to say that, but I think that that day was so pivotal. So pivotal.
What's your baby's name?
Sophie. Yeah. Sophie Grace.
For the record.
Yeah.
Miss Sophie.
She's now 15 months old. She's happy and healthy.
And you're healthy. How's your heart?
I'm great. We've been to every specialist. I've had every test known to mankind done on my heart post-pregnancy.
And there's nothing
wrong with me. Nothing. So it was 100% a strange reaction to pregnancy.
We don't know if it will happen again.
Yes. And it could have been... Still could have been, I have every symptom of the peripartum cardiomyopathy, which, if your heart is healthy after, you are very free to have more babies. So, we will see.
We'll see.
Yeah. In the meantime, we're planning for fostering and adopting as well anyway. So,
So, crazy story. So it goes to, like, what a lot of people say is, you know, midwives and what do you know, that's so dangerous and, you know, on and on. All the things we know. But we do know what's normal, and we do listen, and there you go.
And these women have intuition, and great intuition.
Yeah,
can't speak highly enough of Renee.
Oh, well, God's grace. So there you go.
Yeah.
On that note, any questions or concerns? Anything you want to talk about? You can go to our website, scbbirthcenter.com. Look at our events page. We got a bunch of fun things coming up. Email us with any questions or concerns. And thanks so much for coming in and sharing your story. It's a good one.
Thanks for having me. And again, thank you for what you do.
Oh,
it's needed.
Goodness.
It's needed.
Thank you so much. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.